Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel and a rare ad of a wrestling challenge review, this time for the 4th of October, 1992. Um, and so this is a relatively rare ad because there aren't that many versions of Wrestling Challenge available on the um, internet at this point, or anywhere actually. WWE Network, which are going to be stripping them with Peacock at least for a few months, only has about 10 or 12 of them up. So the fact that we have almost 50 makes me excited. Anyway, Bret Hart, former Intercontinental Champion, and Barry Hardy here. Hart is kind of directionless going into this particular deal, but does end up beating Ric Flair within the same month and launching his first World Championship reign. Shoulder tackles and basic stuff here. Hops over Hardy, hits a couple, gets an inverted atomic drop, which comes out of nowhere. Hits a clothesline, and off we go. Bret Hart, of course, 92 through 96, probably one of the best in the world for the area in terms of in-ring wrestling. Not necessarily uh, a a person of value in that way. Hard shots and a European uppercut style maneuver by Hart. Hart manages to hit the kind of hit that back run, and then we see back elbow, and then drops the elbow there, uh, and ultimately Brett hits the backbreaker, the second rope elbow, and his finish with the sharpshooter. Then we go to the update area. Fans are hyped about the announcement of a, um, the formation of the Ultimate Maniacs, Randy Savage, and the Ultimate Warrior as a tag team, um, which actually never comes to be because the Warrior gets fired or leaves before Survivor Series 92, so a lot of hype goes into something that never comes to fruition, which had to be super frustrating at the time. Kerry Davis and the Repo Man are your next combatants here. Davis certainly, relatively regular enhancement talent. Of course, Barry Darso, otherwise known as Smash, and then the Repo Man here from 92 to 93. Really basic stuff, headlocks, holds on, pulls the hair, does that sort of thing. Hits a clothesline and kind of stands in the corner and laughs at just about everybody that will listen. He then manages to pick the man up, slam him, hits the half crabs maneuver, and manages a win. He's still feuding with the British Bulldog in through Bulldog's um, Intercontinental Championship reign that began about a month and a half before. Then we see him hopping up and down there. We go to a event center promo, which is for a Boston Garden show that particular night. And there's the matchup, six-man tag, Bossman, Undertaker, and the Ultimate Warrior versus Nails, Kamala, and Razor Ramon. Razor Ramon hyping that particular occasion. Of course, Ramon coming in, I believe, debuting in August or September. So he's at most 2 months into his debut and being pushed super, super hard. Razor Ramon coming in, probably the biggest monster push that I've seen in terms of his process there. Of course, the British Bulldog also hyping a match with the Repo Man upcoming at the Boston Garden. Then we go back to the ring for an enhancement match. Tatanka, who at this point is still undefeated, remains undefeated through, I believe, late 93, if I remember correctly. Maybe even into 94. Of course, later getting defeated by Ludwig Borga. But Tatanka manages to, you know, he gets slapped by the Brooklyn Brawler, Irish Whip by the Brawler. Brawler at this point, several years removed from his 89 run, as a big deal with the process of everything that included the benefits of the run with Terry Taylor. Hip toss and a body slam. Then they're also hyping the Wrestling Superstars magazine that they were doing an annual version of. Anyway, chops to the top of the head, and then Tatanka goes to the top rope, manages to hit a top rope chop to the top of the head there, and Tatanka does the, I guess you'd say, Samoan drop, even though he's Native American, hits the move there and gets the victory from that perspective. We go back to the event center. Sean Mooney is there continuing to plug the Boston Garden show. Undertaker speaks for his team, promises to take out Kamala. That's his main focus. The Mountie is managing to promise that he's going to take out his adversary for the evening, and ultimately that's there. Jimmy Hart there with the Mountie to cheer him on. Then we go back to a highlight, which I won't cover because I'll cover this when I do the Survivor Series 1991 review. And yeah, 91 review, but there is a blip of several minutes of the Survivor Series 1991 Ric Flair and Roddy Piper team matches, which really doesn't make sense to me. Maybe there's something in the program that didn't air, or they were, because they didn't do a cut scene into it, so it was kind of confusing. Um, anyway, they're hyping Survivor Series '92 as being a big deal. Remember, at this point, Survivor Series was still a big pay per view. By the late '90s, it was a throwaway. Maybe early 2000s, it was a throwaway. But here, it's still a big deal. That's going into the sixth Survivor Series back when pay-per-views were still 4 year and still mattered. Razor Ramon and Glenn Ruth up next. Glenn Ruth actually becomes one half of the Headbangers several years later. Razor is an amazing squash guy, actually one of the best in terms of, for me, watching him from the lens of, could I imagine that guy beating somebody's tail? Yes, I could. Anyway, hits a few clothesline shots, and other that, he does the reverse fall away slam, and ultimately hits that, including also a back suplex from the second rope on the inside, and then the Razor's Edge, which hits that. And then they're plugging the Survivor Series for the 25th of November. So, I mean, plugging it 6 weeks out like it's a big deal, and the tagline of "Who Will Survive" is a pretty big thing. This is the first time that they don't do primarily elimination-style matches in '92, kind of going a different way. Then we go to a, I guess you'd say, feature matchup with Kamala and Tito Santana. Kamala's still a heel here. Weeks away, probably about 6 weeks away from the coffin match, first ever coffin match in WWF history. I don't know. I think they did coffin matches back in Memphis in the 70s or early 80s, but as far as WWF is concerned, this is the first televised one. Obviously, Tito Santana, by this point, probably about a year away from being done with the company, but still managing to do the Matador gimmick and getting over reasonably well with that. Power moves by Kamala, doesn't get everything he wants. Of course, Harvey Whippleman and Kemshi here to support Kamala and kind of intimidate him as well. Anyway, so we have Santana working on the arm, which for a guy that big doesn't make sense. Psychology back then maybe doesn't make as much sense, but they tried, and I still prefer wrestling psychology of 1992 to anything they do today. Anyway, so Kamala takes the man down, punch kick, really basic stuff, but he's a brawler, so it makes sense. Dealing with Santana is relatively notable and somewhat difficult. Bear hugs there, and ultimately, it's there, and it comes through pretty clearly. Then we see kind of the take through the Undertaker's coffin roll down to the ring, which causes Kamala to run away, which causes a count-out victory for Santana. Then we go back to Enhancement Talent Match. Money Incorporated, former tag team champions, I believe, by this point. I don't think they're holding the belts on this particular occasion against Mike Bell, who later gets beat up years later by Perry Saturn on a episode of, I believe it was Heat, and Tony Perez. DiBiase here for about another 8 months or so, but maybe a little more than that. But anyway, double team maneuvers by Money Incorporated, excuse me there, and so really basic stuff. DiBiase wearing white trunks and still looking to be in the best shape of his life. You have to wonder if he hadn't had problems with his marriage and gone to Japan for kind of a final tour. If he wouldn't have stayed around longer, what that would have looked like. Anyway, vertical suplex, but obviously the neck injury stops that. DiBiase eventually does continue to be, in one of the best positions. Manages a power slam and pretty well gone there. Tag off to IRS. IRS shows his dominance, including a kind of the flying running clothesline deal. And away we go. Winners, Money Incorporated. Then we go back to a promo with the British Bulldog. The relatively still new, probably about 6 weeks in, maybe 8 weeks at most, Intercontinental Champion, British Bulldog. Thanks Bret Hart for giving him the opportunity, and then thanks the fans for their support. Promises to be a fighting champion, and we close the program. In any event, that is our Wrestling Challenge review. We'll be back with more Smoky Mountain reviews later today. Till next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.